So guys, welcome to the live stream. A few hiccups getting it started. It's been a while since I streamed, so some of my settings were a little off. So hopefully I don't drop too many frames. There's bound to be a few, but let's get cracking into it. So today I'm going to cover how to change time of day and how to use alternate vision modes within Unreal Engine. So first things first, just some of the assets from the asset store that I'll be using. So this is an artist called Everett Gunther, an environment artist. That's his homepage there, well worth checking out. Some really cool work. Can't speak highly enough of the guy. He's got some great work. And the asset we're going to be using from this store is his ultra dynamic sky. You can see it there for €33.48. So whatever currency you use, it's still pretty reasonable price for a pretty cool blueprint asset that allows you basically what it says on the tin, an ultra dynamic sky. So with that in mind, and thanks to Everett Gunther for providing the asset, and we'll jump straight into it. So I'm going to full screen this, and Alt P, really cool little shortcut. We'll jump in. So you can see we're walking around here. I'll just exit out and enable some audio for the engine. Okay. So Alt P again to play, and here we are. Hopefully you got some audio there. It might be really low, but it'll give you the idea. So, just to show you how it works, I have it bound to a menu. We can select our time of day. We're here at dusk. Gets to dusk and stops. We'll go to midnight. As you can see, I can't move. I can look around, and only once the time is reached, players then able to move. So that's the basic functionality of how it's working in Engine. So let's get into it. Let's get cracking and have a look at exactly how we're achieving this. So I'm just going to select my ultra dynamic sky, and in the details panel here, see our time of day is at 900 hours, 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to find the blueprint, or just browse to asset. So here we are, here's the actual ultra dynamic sky. Now there's a lot going on in here. I'm not going to cover everything that's going on in here, but I am going to talk about the variables that we'll be driving in order to achieve the results that we're looking for. So the variables we're interested in is day length. You can see that it's a public variable. That's kind of the most important one right now. And we'll get into exactly why at the moment that's kind of the most important one. The other basic controls is this time of day, which is also a public variable inside the ultra dynamic sky blueprint. So we don't really need to look at too much else inside Ultra Dynamic Sky. We're just interested in those two variables to drive our system. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to open up my first person, my character controller, which is a mutated version of the first person blueprint. It's actually got third person stuff in there, and it's got a lot more going on. So this is the main blueprint where all our work is being done. I'll show you the widget later on, but right now this is kind of where we're driving our ultra dynamic sky from. You can see here that we have a select menu that comes up, and that feeds into our time machine. So I'll just quickly show you the select menu. So content. My interface blueprints, and here we are, select menu. So this is the menu that we're using. We have midnight, dawn, midday, and dusk. And in our graph, we're basically doing our usual thing when we create a widget. We're creating a reference to our ultra dynamic sky, so we're casting, getting all actors of class, getting the first entry in the array of that, so instance 0 becomes our ultra dynamic sky reference, and then we're going to a game instance. In my game instance, I have a variable that stops the player from controls the player's movement, and it's tracked through the game instance. We're doing some audio stuff, and we're spawning our menu music, and we're basically reversing that on the way out. For our on-click events for our buttons, we're calling a time. We're calling an event dispatcher. So we call the event dispatcher for dawn, noon, dusk, and midnight. And then we remove the widget and call a switch camera event dispatcher. So that's what's going on in there. So before we get into this main graph here, I want to cover some really basic stuff. So here in this kind of open office version of Excel, I have day length and global time dilation. Now, after playing many kind of open world games and averaging out the average day length, I came up to 90 minutes equals 24 hours in game. So that was kind of the average of games like Skyrim, The Witcher, Metal Gear Solid, The Phantom Pain, and a lot of other games. Some of them are different, but I kind of averaged the day length from all of those games. So global time dilation is basically the speed at which we tick. We do the native tick to the game. So with a global day length of 90 and our global time dilation at a default of 1, we can kind of see the relationship between those two. So basically, if we were to go twice the speed in our tick, then our day length is 45, and so on. So it's basically we're dividing by 2 every time we speed up by 2. Now, that isn't the best mathematical solution for it. There's probably a more accurate way to do it, but I think it gets the job done for now. So we're going to go back over to our engine and explain how that works. So here within the engine, what we want to do is we want to the idea being we want to speed up time, and when time reaches a certain point, we want to slow it back down again and get back to our regular tick time. So, if you remember from our on-click events, our event dispatchers here, we should have a list of them down here under input. So we have an event dispatcher for every for all our times a day and for switching our camera. So if we come over here and we go input menu select pressed, and we have some booleans there to control whether we can actually call this menu, or this widget rather, and once we've done that, we go on to our bind event. Now the reason I'm doing this inside the player controller is because that's where I'm calling the widget, and I want to get a decent reference to it rather than calling or getting all widgets of class and creating a reference. To keep things kind of simple, I've done it within the player controller so that I know my reference is the current instance of that object. So what we're doing first, before we do anything else, is we're calling the switch camera event. Then we're binding the next event dispatcher, which is dawn time, onto noon time, onto dusk time, and then onto midnight. So that's the way our event dispatchers are plugging into from our widget into our first person character. Following on from that, what's interesting is if we call dawn time, we have a boolean that's set that says, is time altering? Yes, the time is now altering. We'll ignore this one for right now, this branch. It'll become apparent later. And what we're doing basically then is we're setting the global time dilation to 12. and then we're setting the day length to a float value of 1.40625. Now if we go back over to my Excel spreadsheet, you'll see that 12 corresponds to the sum of the divisions of our day length. So 12 divisions of our day length get us down to 1.40625. So that's our day length. So if we go back over to our hypergraph here, we see that what we're doing is we're then checking set timer by event. So this fires every 0.2 seconds in tick time. Now you have to remember that we've sped up tick time times 12. So on 0.2 of our new tick time, we are checking in this branch for, we're calling reference ultra dynamic sky time of day, which we had a look at earlier on, nearly equal to float. So this is the very important bit. Because we have sped up our tick time, our global time dilation is now sped up by 12. That's 11 times faster than it should be. It means that unless we use a nearly equal to with a tolerance value, we're going to miss this event. Being the fact that now we're setting an event by timer at 0.2, which on a regular tick time would be collected and would fire, but because we're moving so fast, we need to use a nearly equal to float to catch that time. Otherwise, without this tolerance value, we're going to miss it. So, and again, depending on what speed you're setting your global time dilation, you're going to have to tweak this error tolerance value. So basically, with that said, with an error tolerance of 10, which seemed to work for me, we're checking if current time is nearly equal to 600 hours, which is 6 o'clock in the morning, dawn time. Then we're setting the global time dilation back to 1, so time is back at 1, and we're resetting our day length to 90. And there's some booleans there, but then it's very important that we invalidate the timer. We no longer want to loop through this, so we're killing this timer essentially. Then after that, we're basically allowing player movement again and doing kind of some neat stuff like that. In fact, I have some whole fire zones here. I'm going to delete them. I don't think I need them. Yeah, we'll delete those set hold fire zone because we're not really using them. So we're basically doing the exact same thing, but for all the other times of day as we did in the above graph. The only value that's changing is the nearly equal to B operand, which is midday, 1200 hours, 6 o'clock, 1800 hours, and midnight, 2400 hours. So the most important thing in all of this graph is the nearly equal to float. I had many attempts trying it other ways, and I was using an equal to float, or I was using maybe two conditions in a branch where I had greater and equal to some number, less than equal to another number to try and capture this. But without this nearly equal to float with the error tolerance, you're not going to hit that number because you're speeding up tick time. So the kind of, if you refresh rate in the set timer event is never actually going to catch your variable here unless it's got some tolerance, your float value variable here. So with that said, let's jump in and have a quick look once again at the time. So I'm just going to Alt P, wait for it to come up, and then I'll hit F11. So again, going to midnight, and bang, it catches it. So for interest's sake, just to show you what happens if we're changing time of day and we're not using the correct nearly equal to float here, I'm going to go down to midnight. So we're looking at 600, that's 6 in the morning, midday 1200, so we're going to go down to the 2400 float, and I'm going to set this to 2, and you can see what happens. Because the tolerance now, the error tolerance is only 2 units in the float, what will probably happen is when I go to my menu, click on midnight, it should miss it. Yeah, you can see there, it's missed it, and now it's going to cycle. There's a slim chance that on the next midnight it might catch it, but I don't think it will. So, this error tolerance aperture, I'm going to up it again to 10, and compile, and save. And play. Okay, so we're going to go for midnight again with the tolerance of 10, and we should hit that value. So bang, there we are, midnight. So that's pretty cool. We'll come out of that. So to briefly cover it again, we're getting from our ultra dynamic sky reference, we're getting our time of day. And we're basically, after we speed up our global time dilation, and we set our day length in our ultra dynamic sky to 1.40625, we're then checking if the time of day is 600 with an error tolerance of 10. Because this has been sped up by tick so much, we need the error tolerance of 10, otherwise we're going to miss it. And then we proceed to reset our day length and reset the time dilation back to the regular value of 1. So that's basically how it works. So with that said, let's have a look at the second component that we're going to be talking about today. So, we have an alternate vision mode, which also makes use of time dilation, but it's done in a slightly different way. So, I'll just full screen that. So if I hold down my control button, I have it bound to right now. You can see we get a lens effect. Bar in the top left hand corner is coming down. It's binded to that value. And yeah, so this is kind of like different vision modes that you've seen in other games in the past. But let's come over here to see where it actually works. So if I come over here and my vision mode is enabled, you can see this particle system appears. If I let go, it disappears, and my bar starts to regenerate again. So this is kind of vision mode is used to kind of explore, investigate, and kind of as a narrative device and mechanic to move the story forward. So I'm going to exit out of that. We won't worry about this warning message. It's basically got to do with an audio component. That because we escaped, rather than let the audio component complete its kind of blueprint track, it's thrown an error. But it's not actually an error, because that'll never happen in game. And even if it does, it has a crash handler. It won't crash. So, with that said, we're going to have a look at the blueprint for the object. So I'm just going to load the level that stone. And I'm going to browse to that asset. We'll open it up. That's the asset. And I want to go back to my first person controller to show you the alternate vision, where it's actually taken effect. Okay. So here's our alternate vision graph in this space here. So we have a couple of branches again. We're doing some checks. We're checking to see, are we altering the time of day? We're not altering the time of day? Good. Are we attacking? We're not attacking? Good. Is our current vision, which is one of the variables, floats? So like current, health, or stamina, like that, we have vision current, vision rate decrease, vision max, vision rate increase. So they should be pretty self-explanatory, and it should kind of show you how we're going to go about this, or give you a kind of a hint as to how we're going to go about this. So if the current vision is greater or equal to 0, then we can start visioning. So we set our boolean can vision to true, is visioning to true, and then we get our PP alt vision. So what is PP alt vision? PP alt vision is a reference to the post-processing volume alt vision. So that houses all our post-processing and kind of effects. Once we've enabled that, which by default is disabled, we set our walk speed to 300. We set our global time dilation to 0.5. We play our sound effects. Well, actually, we bring down the audio, the regular master mix, to 0.5. We spawn a sound from a different sound class, and then we're doing a decrease vision by timer. So a lot like our event dispatchers, set timer by event is quite similar to what we were doing below in our time of day system, except this time we're using that event set timer by event to decrease our while we're using our vision mode, to decrease that. So we're taking our current vision float, we're minusing the vision minusing it by vision rate decrease, and if that is less than or equal to 0, and that's true, then we clear this timer. So we're not using this timer anymore, and we set our max walk speed back to 600. We set our can vision to negative, is visioning to negative, and then we disable the post-processing volume, and finally we fade out our music. And then, so that's on our pressed. On released, then we want to start increasing our vision ability bar again. So we're disabling the post-processing volume. We're resetting our boolean for is visioning. We're setting our max walk speed back to 600. We're doing the same sound mix again. So we're bringing back the environment music and sound effects. We are playing another sound that's kind of like the visioning out sound. We're setting our time dilation back to 1. We're fading out this track here, and we're setting another event by timer by event. Then we go on and we invalidate the above time by event. Very important that we are invalidating the other event timers as they're happening. It's quite complex when you're using event timers like this, custom timers, but it is a lot cheaper than using event tick. We want to stay away from event tick. So following this logic again, we're on our release command. We're calling another set timer by event, and we're increasing vision. So when we're increasing vision, we're getting the current vision, and we're adding the vision rate every 0.2. So that's something like 200 times every frame. And then if our current vision is greater and equal to max vision, which is 100, then we're setting our time dilation. I don't think that needs to be there. It doesn't hurt, but it's there. And we're clearing our timer above again. So as long as our vision is below 100, this timer is going to be going. And as soon as it gets over 100, we're clearing this timer. Again, while pressed, if our vision reaches 0, as you can see, if it's less than or equal to 0, we're doing pretty much the exact same thing as we're doing down here. Okay, so let's see how that works in practice. So if I hit play, so I'm going to hold my vision down. I can't attack. Can't really engage with any of the other menus while I have this button pressed. Our vision should be going down to 0. Once it hits 0, oh well, it's not setting back the time. So let's actually do that. That's an interesting thing that popped up there. So what we're going to do is coming over here. So basically, if current vision is less than or equal to 0, then we want to get our time dilation, set global time dilation, and we want that to immediately go back to 1. Compile. Actually set it to 1 first, then hit compile and save. Okay, so let's try that now. So you can see our load times for our foliage and everything is being affected by our time dilation. So there we go. We're back to normal time. Simple as that. Again, the same error is coming from the fade out, which is not to be worried about really. So as you can see, our first person character here is pretty complex at the moment. It'll probably be even more complex in the end, but I've color coded everything to make sure that I know what's related to what. So all our movement stuff is in green, all our attacking and kind of offensive and defensive stuff is this orange, this kind of creamy, I don't know what color you call it, is our selects and things like that. Purple for character, pink is our time machine, updating health and stamina is this kind of bluey green. Our begin play stuff is this dark blue. Our main tick stuff here, which a lot of it is just debug stuff, print screen stuff, is red. Red being that we want to keep as much as we can out of tick, and that's where these event timers come in. These guys here, they're way better to use than putting stuff in a tick, because it's been called so many times a frame that you're going to end up with bottlenecks. So guys, just a quick stream today. I'll be uploading this to YouTube later on, but it's basically how I approached the player being able to change time of day using Everett Gunther's ultra dynamic sky. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll leave some links to his stuff in the comment in the description below. Thanks for tuning in. I'll chat to you all again.